What's up, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at my still too early preseason college football All-Americans heading into next season. It's still a little too early to declare this my for sure preseason All-American list, but we can go ahead and get this list out here. It might change the closer we get to the year, if anybody transfers out, transfers in, stuff like that. But we are going to have a few changes on this list. For example, I'll have, in addition to the usual ones, I'll have best offense, player you ought to know, stuff like that. So we're going to have first, second, third team for each position. Let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? While I'm moving along, by the way, go ahead and join me down in the comment section. First team quarterback, we have Dillon Gabriel heading to Oregon from Oklahoma last year, 3,660 yards, 30 touchdowns, as well as 12 rushing touchdowns. So a really good dual threat guy here. Did really good numbers at Oklahoma. Now imagine what he's going to do in Oregon's offense. Think about what Bo Nix did as well in Oregon's offense. I think Dillon Gabriel is even better than Bo Nix. So I think Dillon Gabriel is about to seriously go off this year, put up some crazy stats most likely. All right, second team quarterback, Seth Henigan. At Memphis, 3,883 yards last year, 32 touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns. Memphis should be in the hunt for that G5 playoff team hunt. I think Memphis is going to be really good this year. And in particular, going to be really good because of Seth Henigan. He's going to put up some good numbers. Should have a chance to get on the big stage and kind of show what he's made of. All right, third team, another G5 guy here. Kaidon Salter puts up some really impressive numbers, not only through the air, but also through running. 2,876 yards passing, 1,089 rushing yards, 44 total touchdowns. Kaidon Salter, kind of the total package. There were some rumors he might transfer to Auburn this offseason. Didn't happen. He's running it back at Liberty. They should be a candidate again, similar to Memphis, to make that college football playoff. All right, moving on to running backs. First team running back, could it be anybody else? Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State, over 1,700 yards last year, 21 touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry. Now, when it comes to running backs and receivers, I'm going to have 2 on the first team, 2 on the second team, and so on. So there is going to be another running back here in a second on the first team. All right, my other guy on the first team this year, Marcus Carroll. All right, Marcus Carroll, you might not have heard of him. Coming from Georgia State last year, put up some really good numbers there. 1,350 yards at Georgia State, 13 touchdowns, 10.2 yards per reception. So a really good dual threat guy there as well. We saw what Cody Schrader did under Missouri's offense, put up some seriously good numbers, top 5 production. Marcus Carroll did this at Georgia State. Imagine what he's about to do at Missouri. These numbers are going to look like nothing compared to what he's about to put up this year. Expect over 1,500 yards at least. All right, second team running back, Ashton jeanty at Boise State, put up really good numbers last year. 1,347 yards, 19 total touchdowns, over 500 receiving yards. This is another guy that can do a little bit of both. And he's going to be asked to do a little bit of both, because Boise State's kind of going to be in the hunt as well. Similar to Memphis, similar to Liberty, Boise State's got a chance to make some noise in the G5 this year, potentially make a playoff push. Ashton jeanty is going to be the main reason because of that. All right, next on the second team, Quinton Cooley. Over 1,400 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns. And Liberty last year had the number 1 rushing offense in the nation. He's a big reason for that. Also Salter. But they're going to definitely put up some good numbers again this year on offense. No reason Cooley can't top this year. All right, moving on to the third team. Tahj Brooks at Texas Tech. Over 1,500 rushing yards last year, 10 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry. Is going to be asked to carry a lot of the load for Texas Tech again, and they should be even better this year, so that's going to kind of put him on a bigger stage, I think, as they should be a top 25 team this year. All right, last on the third team, Ismail Mahdi at Texas State. You probably haven't heard of this guy, but he's really good. 1,331 yards last year, 11 total touchdowns, 13.8 yards per reception. Puts up really good numbers in the pass game and the rushing game. Going to be asked to do it a lot again, and Texas State's going to be really good this year. This is another team you might not know about, but they have a legitimate chance to go 12-0 looking at their schedule. They're bringing a new quarterback that we'll talk about here in a little bit that should probably help elevate that offense to even another level this year. All right, moving on to receiver. First team receiver, McMillan from Arizona. I'm not going to attempt his first name, so bear with me there. Put up really good numbers last year with Noah Fafita, over 1,400 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns, 90 receptions. This is definitely Noah Fafita's go-to option. Going to be an even more improved unit this year, I think. McMillan, no reason he can't have a good year again. All right, next on the first team, Luther Burden at Missouri. Talked about a Missouri guy earlier, all right, but this is another reason that the rushing game can open up is because you have Luther Burden as a threat. 86 receptions, 9 touchdowns, over 1,200 yards catching last year. Luther Burden is back with his quarterback Cook. Should have a really good year again. All right, moving on to the second team here. Ricky White at UNLV. Really good stats here. 1,483 yards last year through the air. 8 touchdowns, 88 receptions. Has a new quarterback, Matthew Sluka, coming in from Holy Cross. And he broke a lot of records at Holy Cross. So I think he's probably going to air it out and look for Ricky White in particular as that number 1 option. All right, next on the second team, Brennan Presley, Oklahoma State, 990 yards, 91, a little less yards from everybody, but 101 receptions. He is the go-to target at Oklahoma State, and he's back. You've got Ollie Gordon to kind of balance that out. 8 total touchdowns. He also had a couple touchdowns rushing, so that's why it's a total touchdown here. Brennan Presley, they like to just give him the ball in a multitude of ways. He should be a big reason Oklahoma State's really good this year. All right, moving on to the third team, Xavier Restrepo, 1,092 yards this past season, 6 touchdowns, 85 receptions. That production should only go up as you bring in Cam Ward to be your quarterback. That production should go through the roof. All right, and last on my third team receiver, Kevin Concepcion, 839 yards, 10 touchdowns, 71 receptions. He also, similar to this last guy, is going to have improved quarterback play. They've got Grayson McCall coming over at NC State from Coastal Carolina, and so his numbers definitely should go through the roof. All right, moving on to tight ends. Bear with me, let me get a drink here. First team tight end, Colston Loveland at Michigan, 649 yards last year, 4 touchdowns, 45 receptions. His numbers are probably going to go up. Okay, you've got different players now, You've got a different quarterback. Alex Orji's probably going to be the quarterback at Michigan as you lose J.J. McCarthy. But they lose a ton of other pieces on offense, including some of their receivers. So Loveland is going to be the guy. And what's a quarterback's best friend? A tight end. Okay, so if you have a good tight end, you can dump it down to him. And with Orji probably not trusting to air it out just yet, I see him feeding Loveland a lot. He should get way past 45 receptions this year. All right, second team tight end, Jake Brenningstool from Clemson, 498 yards last year, 5 touchdowns, 50 receptions. Should be looked at a lot in Clemson's offense this year, and Clemson's going to be really good. Third team tight end, RJ Maryland, 518 yards, 7 touchdowns, really gets in the end zone, 34 receptions, really took off towards the end of the year last year for SMU, and moving into a bigger conference could get a little more exposure, and if he can have a good year this year again, should be close to this list. All right, moving on to the offensive line, I went ahead and grouped these together instead of doing tackle, guard, and center. LSU brings back both their tackles. You can see them down here now. Big reason for Daniel's success last year, as well as, both their receivers. Both of these tackles really gave them a lot of time in the pocket. They should be a really good asset for Nussmeier at LSU this year. Second team offensive line, Georgia, bring back 2 of the best guards in the nation pictured here. And they're going to be a big reason Georgia has a good offense again this year. Now, they do lose a ton of pieces besides Carson Beck. Lose Brock Bowers, lose Lab McConkey, but that offensive line is really going to let them pound it a little bit. All right, third team offensive line, Alabama. They kind of had some struggles last year, particularly at center, but they improved that. They brought in Washington center, regarded as the best center in the country. We saw how much time Michael Penix Jr. had against Texas in the semifinals. He's a big reason for that. Bringing him in under Kalen DeBoer's offense again should give Jalen Milroe even improvement this year. Because think back to even Alabama's last play of the season, bad snap. If you can get that improved, get lineman play improved, Alabama should have a good year. All right, first team PYOK. So what I mean by that, this is going to be player you ought to know that you might not know. So I'm going to have this on offense and on defense. So first team player you ought to know is going to be Kyle Monunga. All right, at Rutgers, over 1,200 yards last year. I got a bug flying on my freaking face. Over 1,200 yards last year, 8 touchdowns, led the Big Ten in rushing. And looking at Rutgers' schedule, they have a legitimate chance to make the Big Ten championship this year. They avoid every one of the good teams in the Big Ten, so he's going to be on a bigger stage this year, I think. And if they do make the Big Ten championship, Kyle Monunga is going to be a big reason for that. All right, second team player you all know, Joey Aguilar at Appalachian State. Should be really good this year. Look at his stats last year, 3,757 yards through the air, 33 touchdowns, 151.6 passer rating. Joey Aguilar, really good at App State. If they are good again this year, he's going to be a big reason why. All right, third team player you all know, Thomas Castellanos at Boston College, over 2,000 yards passing last year, as well as over 1,000 rushing yards, 28 total touchdowns. This is only going to go through the roof, probably bringing in Bill O'Brien, kind of the offensive mastermind. I know he kind of was so regarded at Alabama as the OC, but think back to what he did at Penn State, at Houston for the Texans, at New England. Thomas Castellanos is going to improve through the air this year. I'm kind of curious to see how this match goes because he's a really good dual threat guy. Probably, if not the best running quarterback besides maybe like Jalen Milroe in the nation. Thomas Castellanos, I'm curious to see how that marriage is. All right, first team best transfer, Jordan McLeod, all right, at Texas State, transferring over from James Madison. Over 3,657 yards passing last year, 35 touchdowns, as well as 8 rushing touchdowns. James Madison, we know they kind of reached the top 25 last year. Jordan McLeod was a big reason why, and he's a big reason why I think Texas State is going to have a chance to go 12-0 this year. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Jordan McLeod should have a really great year. All right, second team best transfer, and also I should clarify, to be the best transfer, I had to not talk about you already. So like Dillon Gabriel obviously would be first team, but he's not here. And also this is kind of more of a fit thing than anything. So kind of like best transfer that I think impacts the college football playoff. Like Jordan McLeod to Texas State, I think gets them to a potential playoff bid being 12-0. Second team though, Grayson McCall coming over from Coastal Carolina to NC State. So I had to kind of pick his stats here because last year he didn't play the whole season and got hurt. So bear with me on that. 2,873 yards, 33 total touchdowns, 3-time Sun Belt Player of the Year. He's won a ton of ball games. He's going to win ball games at NC State as well. They could push for the college football playoff this year. Third team best transfer, Cam Ward at Miami, coming over from Washington State. 3,735 yards last year, 25 touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns. Going to offer them a little different offensive scheme than Tyler Van Dyke did, which was really injury prone last year. They also just recently got a commitment from Damian Martinez at Oregon State. Cam Ward's going to light it up at Miami. All right, honorable mention best transfer here, Jacory Croskey-Merritt from New Mexico. Recently committed to Arizona. Should help Noah Fafita and McMillan. Give them a threat through the rushing game. 1,190 yards last year, 17 touchdowns. Ton of touchdowns there. 6.3 yards per carry. He should really improve this Arizona offense despite them having a good offense last year. All right, last but not least here, first team offense, Oregon. Last year, 531.4 yards per game, 346.9 passing yards per game, 44.2 points per game. They bring in Dillon Gabriel. Like I said, he is going to improve that offense, I think, despite what they've lost. You also bring in Dante Moore from UCLA for the future as your backup quarterback. Oregon's offense should be really good this year. Second team offense, Ohio State. All right, you lost Stover at tight end. You lost Marvin Harrison Jr. You lost Kyle McCord, but you bring in Will Howard from Kansas State. He's a pretty good dual threat guy. You bring back Travion Henderson, Abuka. You bring in Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. Gives you a ton of options in the backfield. I think Ohio State's going to light it up. All right, third team offense, Liberty. We talked about how good their rushing attack is. 499.1 yards per game, 293.3 rushing yards per game last year. Salter and Cooley, a big part of that. You see their tight end pictured here. They should be really good again as they bring back a ton of pieces. All right, so moving over to defense here, we're going to start with the defensive line. All right, first team defensive line, Ole Miss. We know they brought in a ton from the transfer portal, in particular Presley. Wasn't going to attempt his last name. And Walter Nolan from Texas A&M, they bring back Ivy and Pegas. 150-plus tackles between the two, and Presley and Nolan are highly regarded. This D-line is loaded. As long as they can avoid injuries, those front four they're going to have are going to be super dominant. All right, second team defensive line here, Florida State. Bring in Marvin Jones Jr. from Georgia. You bring back Patrick Payton. You bring in Sion Laholahe from Oregon State. I'm not even going to attempt that name. 100 total tackles combined, 100 plus, This D-line is going to be deadly. With these three in particular, Payton last year, All-ACC team himself. Marvin Jones Jr. has potential. Sion has shown a bunch of talent at Oregon State. This D-line is going to be good. All right, and third team defensive line here, Texas A&M. You bring in Cassius Howe from Bowling Green, 9.5 sacks. You bring in Nick Scourton from Purdue, 10 sacks. Bring in a ton of sack production. Should be able to get past the quarterback. Get after the quarterback in the passing game. Texas A&M's D-line should be fine despite losing what they lost last year. First team linebackers, Iowa. All right, they bring back Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. You see their production here. Jay Higgins, 171 tackles last year, probably the best defensive player in all of America. They also bring back Nick Jackson with 110 tackles. You see them both here tackling Iowa State. They are all over the place. They're a big reason Iowa's defense is what it is. Sorry, guys, losing my voice here. All right, second team linebackers, we have South Carolina. Bring in Demetrius Knight Jr. from Charlotte, 96 tackles as well as 3 interceptions. All right, so can really get the ball turned over. And you bring back Debo Williams, 113 tackles last year. South Carolina's defense, even if they do have offensive limitations, with Spencer Rattler gone, with Leggett gone, their defense should be able to get after it. All right, and third team linebackers, Oklahoma State returned both of their starting linebackers from last year. Nick Martin with 140 tackles, Colin Oliver, 73 tackles, 6 sacks. Both these guys are all over the freaking place and are the reason I have Oklahoma State as the Big 12 favorite right now. All right, first team DBs, Ohio State. You bring in Caleb Downs, that is the big name, bringing him over from Alabama, pictured above. They also bring back a ton from their defense. They bring back their other safety as well as a trio of cornerbacks, Ransom, Burke, Davison, Hancock. All those guys meshing with Caleb Downs. This defense should be an absolute lockdown unit on defense. Second team DBs, Notre Dame, we have Xavier Watts coming back to lead that defense. You also bring in Jordan Clark and Rod Hurd from the transfer portal, 100-plus tackles combined with those two. This secondary is going to be all over the place for Notre Dame, and a reason I have them in the college football playoff hunt. All right, third team DBs, Michigan. They bring back a few of the guys in the secondary from last year, Makari Page, Will Johnson, Rod Moore. They're also bringing in a couple others, supposedly. They're bringing back one that did leave a couple years ago, went to Ole Miss, but now he's supposedly coming back. We'll see if that actually happens. Last year, the number one defense, we know they lost a ton, but they should be good once again. All right, first team player you ought to know on defense, Jason Henderson at Old Dominion. 167 tackles, one of the best tacklers in the nation. Almost leads the nation in tackling. 4.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. I know Old Dominion doesn't get a lot of love because they're not very good, but Jason Henderson, really good. All right, second team player you all know, Ty Wise. All right, at Miami of Ohio, 122 tackles last year, 8 sacks, 1 interception, as well as some forced fumbles. Really gets the ball turned over. You can see him here actually running the ball. Third team player you ought to know, Devin Grant. All right, coming over to Syracuse from Buffalo. Syracuse should be improved this year. He's going to be a big reason being that kind of ball hawk on the defense. 79 tackles, 5 picks, 2 touchdowns. So not only is he getting the ball turned over, he's also taking a house. All right, first team best transfer, Trey Moore. UTSA to Texas. All right, I've got him down as an edge because he's kind of a tweener between a DN and an outside linebacker. 45 tackles, 14 sacks. One forced fumble, 1 interception. The reason I think he's going to be an impact transfer is that sack production. All right, think back to that Washington game. Michael Penix Jr. had all day back there because Sweat and Murphy, as good as they were, they're not getting any pass rush. Sweat's not going to be able to catch anybody. The dude weighs, we know what he weighs. He's huge. But Trey Moore, bringing him in outside, I think that's going to give you an extra guy to go get after the quarterback. Should help Texas out tremendously. That's what they need. All right, second team best transfer, Jabbar Muhammad at Oregon, coming over from Washington, transferring in conference. I was going to say in conference, but it is in conference actually. 46 tackles, 3 interceptions, 2 sacks. Jabbar Muhammad, as well as a ton of other transfers, are coming over. Should help Oregon really have a really good defense this year. They bring back some pieces, but in the transfer portal, they've absolutely loaded up. All right, third team best transfer, Easton Mascarenas Arnold. Coming over to USC from Oregon State, 106 tackles last year, 2 picks, 2 sacks. The reason he's on here, we always know USC's defense is kind of lacking a little bit. If it's going to improve this year, which would help USC tremendously, we know Lincoln Riley can get a good offense, but if that defense can step up, USC goes on a completely different level. He is the reason that could happen. All right, leader of that defense now. If he can come in and make an instant impact, watch out for USC. All right, first team overall defense, Ohio State. We talked about the secondary already and what they have. They also bring back their 2 DNs, JT Tuamalola. I'm not going to attempt that name too much. And Jack Sawyer. Also Jim Knowles, widely regarded as the best defense coordinator in the nation. JT could have been a first-round pick this year probably. Didn't go pro. He's had a lot of flashes throughout the years. And then we talked about, like I said, that secondary, Caleb Downs, as well as the corners they already have. Ohio State should be really impressive on defense this year. Borderline lockdown. All right, second team defense, Iowa. All right, we already talked about their linebackers and a lot of their leading tacklers. Jay Higgins, 4 of their top 5 tacklers come back. Interception leader, you can see him here, Sebastian Castros, 13.2 points per game last year. Now, what is that offense going to be? I don't know. All right, that's always up for debate with Iowa, but their defense is definitely going to be good. All right, third team defense, Penn State. Bring back 4 of their top 5 tacklers from last year from a really good defense. Bring back their 2 interception leaders. They bring in talent from the transfer portal. A.J. Harris coming over from Georgia. 11.4 points per game last year. Penn State's defense should be even improved from that. All right, honorable mention defense. This is the last one here, Michigan. Last year, obviously, they had the number 1 defense. They lose a ton of pieces to the draft, so I'm a little skeptical on how good that defense is going to be. But they bring back 3 of the 4 DBs. We talked about them earlier. They bring back Graham and Grant on the D-line. You see them pictured here. They bring back Houseman at linebacker. I think that defense is going to be good again. I know they lose some pieces in the NFL. There's a reason that team won the national championship last year, but I think they're going to be good again. Not top 5 level because of the offense. I'm a little skeptical on that, but their defense should be really good again. But, guys, those are my still too early preseason All-Americans. Let me know yours. Let me know your thoughts. Would you add anybody to this list? Would you take them off? Or just let me know your All-Americans. Let me know. Comment down below. Make sure to like this video. And most importantly, subscribe.